Kang Ji-hoon never imagined that walking away from a billion-dollar empire would lead him to a cramped security office in a Chicago elementary school. But on that cold November morning, as he watched children stream through the gates of Lincoln Elementary, he realized that sometimes the greatest wealth wasn't measured in zeros on a bank statement. The fluorescent lights in the security office flickered slightly, casting uneven shadows across the small desk where Ji-hoon sat. At 32 years old, he should have been in a corner office overlooking Seoul's skyline, running Kang Industries, the multi-billion-dollar conglomerate his family had built over 3 generations. Instead, he was here, wearing a uniform that still felt foreign against his skin, watching grainy security feeds of hallways and playgrounds. His supervisor, Earl Washington, a heavy-set man in his 60s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude, poked his head into the office. "Morning, Park. Got your round schedule for today. Make sure you check the west entrance. Lock's been sticky lately." Ji-hoon nodded, accepting the clipboard. He'd been using the name David Park for the past 3 months, a simple Americanization that helped him blend into obscurity. No one here knew that the man checking ID badges and monitoring security cameras was heir to one of South Korea's largest conglomerates. Before we continue, comment below with the city you're watching from. Let's see where this story is reaching today. The morning air was crisp as Ji-hoon stepped outside for his first round. Autumn had painted Chicago in shades of amber and gold, and the early light filtered through the trees that lined the school's perimeter. Children arrived in waves, some dropped off by parents in expensive SUVs, others walking in groups, backpacks bouncing against their shoulders. "Good morning, Mr. Park," a small voice called out. Ji-hoon turned to see Emma Rodriguez, a third grader with gap-toothed smile and boundless energy. She waved enthusiastically as her mother guided her toward the entrance. "Good morning, Emma," Ji-hoon replied, his English carrying only the slightest accent now. 3 months of immersion had smoothed out most of the rough edges, though certain words still challenged him. As he watched Emma disappear into the building, Ji-hoon felt something he hadn't experienced in years, a sense of purpose that had nothing to do with quarterly earnings or board meetings. These children didn't care who his family was, or how much money sat in offshore accounts. They cared that he remembered their names, that he smiled when they said hello, that he made them feel safe. "Excuse me." The voice was female, professional, with an edge of suspicion that immediately put Ji-hoon on alert. He turned to find a woman in her late 20s standing a few feet away, arms crossed, dark eyes studying him with unconcealed curiosity. She was beautiful in an understated way, no makeup that Ji-hoon could detect, dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, wearing jeans and a Lincoln Elementary staff shirt. But it was her expression that caught his attention, intelligent, skeptical, and entirely unimpressed by whatever first impression he was making. "Can I help you?" Ji-hoon asked, maintaining the polite neutrality he'd perfected over months of avoiding attention. "I'm Sarah Chen, 4th grade teacher." She didn't offer her hand, just continued to study him with that penetrating gaze. "You're the new security guard." It wasn't a question, but Ji-hoon nodded anyway. "David Park. I started 3 months ago." "I know. I've been away. Family emergency." Sarah's expression softened slightly at the mention, but her wariness remained. "I wanted to introduce myself. Make sure you know which kids are in my class. Some of them can be adventurous." Ji-hoon almost smiled. In his previous life, he'd negotiated with corporate sharks who'd gut you for a percentage point. 4th graders didn't seem particularly intimidating by comparison. "I'd appreciate that," he said simply. Sarah studied him for another moment, as if trying to solve a puzzle she couldn't quite see clearly. Then she seemed to make a decision, her posture relaxing fractionally. "Walk with me. I'll point them out during drop-off." As they moved through the parking lot, Sarah narrated a running commentary of her students. "That's Marcus. Brilliant kid. But he'll try to sneak his Nintendo Switch past you. Jenny over there has a peanut allergy, so you need to watch for reactions. The twins, Tom and Terry, will definitely try to pull some kind of switch on you at some point." Ji-hoon listened carefully, filing away each detail. In his old life, he'd been trained to remember names, faces, relevant details about business partners and competitors. This felt similar, but somehow more important. "You're very observant," Ji-hoon commented as they watched a group of fifth graders horsing around near the bike racks. "Part of the job. You have to be when you're responsible for 28 10-year-olds. Sarah glanced at him sideways. "What about you? What made you want to work school security?" It was the question Ji-hoon had been dreading and preparing for in equal measure. The lie came easily now, rehearsed until it sounded like truth. "I needed a change, something more meaningful than my previous work." "Which was?" "Corporate, very corporate." Ji-hoon kept his tone light, deliberately vague. "Lots of hours, lots of stress, not much satisfaction." Sarah made a non-committal sound. "And standing in a parking lot checking badges is more satisfying?" "You'd be surprised." There was something in his tone that made Sarah look at him more closely, and Ji-hoon felt exposed in a way he hadn't since arriving in Chicago. This woman saw too much, questioned too easily. She would be a problem if he wasn't careful. But as the bell rang and children streamed past them toward the entrance, Sarah's attention shifted to her students. She called out greetings, reminded someone about homework, complimented another's new backpack, and Ji-hoon saw something in her expression that he recognized. Genuine care, the kind that couldn't be faked or manufactured for appearance's sake. "I should get to class," Sarah said, glancing at her watch, "but I'm sure we'll see each other around." "I'm sure," Ji-hoon agreed. As she walked away, Ji-hoon found himself watching her go, noting the confident stride, the way students gravitated toward her even as she moved through the crowd. She was different from the women he'd known in Seoul. No designer clothes, no careful makeup, no studied charm designed to attract wealth and status. She was real. And that, Ji-hoon realized with some discomfort, made her dangerous. The rest of the morning passed in the familiar rhythm Ji-hoon had grown accustomed to. He checked perimeters, monitored cameras, responded to Earl's occasional requests over the radio. During lunch, he ate alone in the security office. Homemade kimbap that reminded him of his mother's kitchen, though she'd probably have a heart attack if she knew where her son was eating it. His phone buzzed. A text from his father, brief and accusatory as always. "Board meeting next week. You need to be here." Ji-hoon deleted it without responding. He'd deleted dozens of similar messages over the past months, each one a reminder of the life he'd walked away from. His father, Kang Hyun-woo, had built Kang Industries into a powerhouse, and he'd raised his only son to take over that empire without question or hesitation. But Ji-hoon had questions. Lots of them. Like why success had to mean 80-hour work weeks and a marriage arranged for business advantage. Why happiness was less important than market share. Why his grandfather's quiet warning, "Don't become so rich you forget how to be human," had been dismissed as the rambling of an old man. So Ji-hoon had done something unprecedented in the Kang family. He'd said no. Not publicly, not dramatically. He'd simply finished his MBA at Northwestern, refused to return to Seoul, and disappeared into Chicago's sprawling anonymity. His family had resources to find him, of course, but his father was too proud to chase after a son who'd rejected his birthright. Better to let Ji-hoon get it out of his system and come crawling back when reality hit. Except reality had turned out to be a security guard uniform and a cramped office, and Ji-hoon had never felt more alive. The afternoon brought its own rhythms. Ji-hoon monitored dismissal, making sure children got into the right cars, that no one wandered off, that the chaos of 300 kids leaving at once didn't result in accidents or confusion. He was helping a kindergartner find her mother's car when he noticed Sarah Chen standing near the teacher's parking lot, watching him. When their eyes met, she didn't look away or pretend she'd been doing something else. She just studied him with that same penetrating gaze, as if he were a particularly complex math problem. Ji-hoon finished helping the kindergartner and walked over, curiosity overriding caution. "Is something wrong?" he asked. Sarah shook her head slowly. "No, just... you're different." "Different how?" Most security guards I've known are either ex-cops or retirees looking for easy work. You're neither. She tilted her head slightly. You move like someone who's trained but not military. You speak like someone highly educated, but you're working minimum wage. And you watch people the way I do, like you're cataloging everything about them. Ji-hoon felt his heart rate increase slightly, though his expression remained neutral. Maybe I'm just good at my job. Maybe. Sarah didn't sound convinced. Or maybe you're running from something. The accuracy of her observation hit harder than Ji-hoon expected. He considered deflecting, making a joke, ending the conversation. But something about Sarah's directness made him want to be honest, or as honest as he could be. Isn't everyone running from something? He asked quietly. Sarah's expression softened slightly. Fair point. She was quiet for a moment, then seemed to make a decision. There's a coffee shop 2 blocks from here, Martinez's. I'm there most mornings before school. If you ever want to not run from something for a few minutes, I'll be the one grading papers in the corner. Before Ji-hoon could respond, she'd turned and walked to her car, a sensible Honda Civic with a Teachers Change Lives bumper sticker. He watched her drive away, feeling off balance in a way he couldn't quite explain. That evening, in his modest apartment across town, Ji-hoon stood at the window looking out at Chicago's glittering skyline. The apartment was a far cry from his family's estate in Seoul. No servants, no luxury, no space bigger than strictly necessary. But it was his, paid for with money he'd earned, and that made it more valuable than any penthouse. His phone buzzed again. Another text, this time from his mother. Your father is worried. Please call. Ji-hoon knew what that meant. His father wasn't worried. He was angry, frustrated that his carefully laid plans were being derailed by a son who'd chosen meaning over money. But his mother, she might actually be worried. Of all his family, she'd been the only one who'd seemed to understand, even if she couldn't support his choice openly. He typed out a brief response. I'm fine. I'll call soon. It was a lie. He wouldn't call soon. Maybe not ever. Because calling meant explaining, and explaining meant defending choices that shouldn't need defense. Ji-hoon had spent 32 years being who everyone expected him to be. For the first time in his life, he was being who he wanted to be. And if that meant losing everything else, so be it. The next morning, Ji-hoon found himself walking into Martinez's coffee shop before his shift. He told himself it was just convenient, that he needed caffeine, that it had nothing to do with Sarah Chen's invitation. He spotted her immediately. Corner table, papers spread out, red pen moving in quick, efficient strokes. She looked up when he entered and something flickered in her expression. Surprise? Pleasure? It was gone too quickly for him to identify. Black coffee, she called out before he reached the counter. No sugar, no cream. Am I right? Ji-hoon smiled despite himself. How did you know? Teacher's intuition. Plus you have that, I take my coffee seriously look about you. She gestured to the empty chair across from her. Sit. I promise I won't interrogate you about your mysterious past. Somehow I don't believe that, Ji-hoon said. But he sat anyway. They talked about the school, about students, about Sarah's challenges with a particularly difficult parent. The conversation felt natural, easy in a way Ji-hoon hadn't experienced since leaving Seoul. But he was careful, always careful, to steer away from personal revelations. So, what about you? Sarah asked, circling a note on one of her papers. Any family? Friends in Chicago? Not really. I'm new to the area. From where originally? Korea, South Korea. It was safer to be partially honest than to construct elaborate lies. Your English is excellent. Thank you. I studied in the U.S. for graduate school. What did you study? Ji-hoon hesitated. This was where the conversation got dangerous. Business, MBA from Northwestern. Sarah's pen stopped moving. She looked at him with renewed interest. Northwestern. That's not exactly a school for people who end up in minimum wage security jobs. Life takes unexpected turns. That's one way to put it. Sarah set down her pen, giving him her full attention. You're a puzzle, David Park. Is that a problem? No, just interesting. She smiled slightly. I like puzzles. Their morning coffee ritual continued for weeks, each conversation peeling back another layer of who they were. Sarah talked about her family, her parents' journey from Taiwan, the pressure to succeed, her brother's struggles with dyslexia. Ji-hoon shared carefully edited stories about growing up with expectations, about the weight of family duty. He learned that Sarah had wanted to be a novelist but chose teaching for stability, that she spent weekends volunteering at a literacy center, that she'd been engaged once to a lawyer her parents loved, but called it off 3 days before the wedding because she couldn't imagine a lifetime of pretending to be someone she wasn't. What made you realize? Ji-hoon asked one morning. I was looking at the seating chart for the reception and I thought, I don't even like half these people. If I couldn't be honest about my own wedding, how could I be honest about my life? Sarah stirred her coffee thoughtfully. Sometimes the hardest thing is admitting you want something different than what everyone expects. The words resonated more than she could know. As October turned to November, the dynamic between them shifted. Their conversations grew longer, more personal. Ji-hoon found himself sharing feelings he'd never articulated before. The suffocation of expectations, the loss of identity that came from always being who others needed him to be. The guilt of walking away. You know what I think? Sarah said one morning, her hand wrapped around her coffee cup. I think running away and being a coward are two different things. Running away is about fear, but leaving something that's killing you, that's survival. That's courage. I'm not sure my family would agree. Families rarely do, but you're not living your life for them. You're living it for you. She looked at him directly. The question is, are you living it, or are you still just hiding? The question haunted Ji-hoon for days. Was he building a new life or just avoiding his old one? Was there a difference? It was a Tuesday afternoon, shortly after Thanksgiving break, when everything changed. Ji-hoon was monitoring the west entrance when he heard shouting from the parking lot. He sprinted toward the sound and found Marcus's father, a man named Robert Torres, backing Sarah against a car. The man was clearly intoxicated, his face flushed, his movements uncoordinated but threatening. You told them I hit him, Torres was screaming, his breath visible in the cold air. You called CPS on me. You're trying to destroy my family. Mr. Torres, you need to calm down. Sarah's voice was steady, but Ji-hoon could see her hands trembling, could see the fear she was trying to hide. Don't tell me to calm down. My kid gets taken away because some bitch teacher thinks she knows better than his own father. Ji-hoon moved before Torres finished the sentence. He placed himself between them with practiced efficiency, his stance casual but unmistakably ready. When he spoke, his voice carried an authority that had nothing to do with a security guard's uniform. It was the voice of someone who'd faced down corporate predators, who'd been trained since childhood to command rooms full of powerful men. Walk away, now. The words were quiet, almost conversational, but something in Ji-hoon's eyes made Torres hesitate. You have 3 seconds to get in your car and leave, or I call the police and you get arrested in front of your son's school. Your choice. Torres stared at him, breathing heavily, clearly weighing his options. Ji-hoon didn't blink, didn't move. He'd learned long ago that real power wasn't about size or volume. It was about absolute certainty. And right now, he was absolutely certain. This isn't over, Torres finally muttered, but he was already backing away, his bravado crumbling. Yes, Ji-hoon said quietly, his voice carrying unmistakable finality. It is. They watched Torres stumble to his car and drive away, tires squealing on the pavement. Only then did Ji-hoon turn to Sarah, who was pressed against the car, her face pale, her breathing rapid. Are you hurt? He asked, gentler now. Sarah shook her head, but when she tried to speak, her voice cracked. Ji-hoon saw her knees start to buckle and caught her elbow, steadying her. It's the adrenaline, he said softly. You're safe now. Just breathe. Sarah took several shaky breaths, her hand gripping his arm. Then she looked up at him, and in her eyes, Ji-hoon saw recognition, the beginning of understanding. "Who are you really, David Park?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Because that," she gestured vaguely. "That wasn't a security guard handling a drunk parent. That was something else entirely." Ji-hoon knew this moment would come eventually. He'd just hoped for more time. "I told you. Corporate background." "No." Sarah pulled away slightly, her analytical mind clearly working despite the shock. That was training, real training. The way you moved, positioned yourself without making it look aggressive. The tone of voice, commanding but not threatening. The absolute certainty in your eyes. She was breathing steadier now, color returning to her face. That's not something you learn in corporate meetings. Before Ji-hoon could respond, Principal Morrison came running out, having been alerted by another teacher who'd witnessed the confrontation. The moment for revelation passed as they gave statements, filled out incident reports, called the police to file a formal complaint. But Ji-hoon felt Sarah's eyes on him throughout, saw her piecing together a puzzle she wasn't supposed to solve. That evening, Sarah appeared at the security office just as Ji-hoon was finishing his shift. "Can we talk?" she asked. "Off campus?" They drove separately to a small park 2 blocks north, one of those neighborhood spaces with a playground and a few benches. The early winter evening was cold enough that they had the place to themselves. They sat on a bench, and for a long moment neither spoke. Ji-hoon could feel Sarah gathering her thoughts, preparing for something. "I did something I probably shouldn't have," Sarah began, not looking at him. "After today, after watching you handle Torres like that, I Googled you thoroughly this time." Ji-hoon's stomach dropped, but he kept his expression neutral. "And?" David Park shows up nowhere. No social media, no LinkedIn, no old yearbook photos, no digital footprint at all. In 2023, that's almost impossible unless you're actively hiding. She turned to face him now. So I tried variations. Park as a last name, which led me to Korean naming conventions. Korean family names are usually one syllable, and they traditionally come first. So Park might not be your last name at all. Ji-hoon felt his carefully constructed world beginning to crack. "And then," Sarah continued, her voice steady but her eyes showing the effort this was costing her, "I remembered something. When you were helping translate for Mrs. Kim, the Korean parent whose son is in 2nd grade, you almost introduced yourself differently before catching yourself. It sounded like Kang before you said Park." The observation was devastatingly accurate. "Kang Ji-hoon," Sarah said quietly. "That's your real name, isn't it? Not David Park." The words hung between them in the cold evening air. Ji-hoon could lie, could maintain the fiction, could protect himself. But looking at Sarah's honest, open expression, at the fear and concern and curiosity all mixed together, he found he didn't want to. "It's close," he said carefully. "But you're right. David Park isn't my real name." Sarah took a breath, and Ji-hoon saw her processing this confirmation. "I need you to be completely honest with me about something. Are you dangerous? Is anyone at that school in danger because you're there?" "No, absolutely not." "Then why are you hiding? What are you running from?" Ji-hoon looked out at the darkening sky, weighing how much truth he could offer without revealing everything. When he spoke, his voice was soft but honest. "I'm not running from danger, Sarah. I'm running from expectations. From a life that was planned for me before I was born, from being someone I never chose to be." He paused. "The person I was expected to be was killing the person I actually am." The honesty seemed to reach her. Sarah was quiet for a long moment, thinking. "Okay," she said finally. "I can accept that, for now. But eventually, Ji-hoon, and yes, I'm going to call you that when we're alone, eventually you're going to need to trust me with the whole truth." "I know," Ji-hoon said quietly. "I'm just not ready yet." "When you are." Sarah reached out and took his hand, her fingers cold, but her grip firm. "I'll be here." It was a promise and a challenge, and Ji-hoon felt something shift between them, the beginning of something real, something that couldn't exist alongside lies. The weeks that followed deepened their connection. They were careful at school, maintaining professional distance, but their mornings at Martinez's became essential. Sarah shared more of herself, her fear of not being enough, her students who broke her heart, her dreams of starting a literacy program for underprivileged kids. Ji-hoon, in turn, began sharing the emotional truth of his past, even without revealing specifics. The suffocation of expectations, the loss of identity that came from always being who others needed him to be, the guilt of walking away from family. One morning in early December, Sarah brought something up that had clearly been on her mind. "You know what I think?" she said, warming her hands on her coffee cup. "I think you can't run forever, but you also can't live a life that slowly kills you. Eventually, you'll need to find a third option, something between complete abandonment and complete submission." Is there a third option? There's always a third option. It's just usually harder to find than the obvious two. Those words would echo in Ji-hoon's mind in the months to come. Christmas brought a shift in their relationship. The school was decorated, children were excited, and the atmosphere was charged with anticipation. Ji-hoon had never celebrated Christmas traditionally. His family observed it as a cultural curiosity more than anything else. But watching the joy it brought to Lincoln Elementary, he found himself caught up in it. On the last day before winter break, Sarah handed him a small package wrapped in newspaper comics. "It's not much," she said, almost shy. "But I saw it and thought of you." Inside was a bookmark made of pressed flowers, with a quote from Proust about seeing with new eyes. It was simple, handmade, and more meaningful than anything his money could have bought. "I love it," Ji-hoon said honestly. "Thank you." "You're welcome," Sarah smiled. "Merry Christmas, Ji-hoon." "Merry Christmas, Sarah." The space between them felt charged, full of unspoken possibilities. And then, gently, Ji-hoon reached out and took her hand, just held it, there in the empty hallway, with paper snowflakes hanging from the ceiling, and the sound of children's laughter echoing from the gym. Sarah squeezed back, and no words were necessary. They spent part of the holiday together. Nothing formal, just walks through the city, hot chocolate at various cafes, a trip to the Art Institute where Sarah explained the stories behind the paintings, and Ji-hoon shared what he knew about Asian art. They talked for hours, about everything and nothing, building something neither wanted to name but both could feel. It was on New Year's Eve, watching fireworks from Sarah's apartment rooftop, that Ji-hoon kissed her. It was gentle, questioning, an offer rather than a demand. When Sarah kissed him back, something in his chest finally eased, a tension he'd been carrying since leaving Seoul. "Is this okay?" he whispered against her lips. "Yes," Sarah said simply. "This is very okay." The new year brought new challenges and deeper intimacy. They were officially together now, though they kept it quiet at school. Not because they were ashamed, but because they wanted something that was just theirs before it became public knowledge. They learned each other's rhythms, quirks, fears. Ji-hoon discovered that Sarah sang off-key when she was happy, that she was terrible at cooking but excellent at ordering takeout, that she cried at commercials but remained stoic during actual crises. Sarah learned that Ji-hoon was meticulous about small things, that he had nightmares sometimes about drowning in boardrooms, that he could make her laugh with perfectly timed observations delivered in his slightly accented English. But as winter turned to spring, Ji-hoon felt the weight of his deception growing heavier. Sarah deserved the truth, all of it, and he knew he couldn't keep hiding forever. It was a warm evening in May when everything came to a head. Ji-hoon was working security at a corporate event downtown, Asian business leaders networking in Chicago. He'd checked the guest list carefully, seen no Korean names he recognized, judged it safe. He was wrong. The voice came from behind him, speaking Korean with familiar warmth. "Excuse me, could you tell me where the restrooms are?" Ji-hoon turned despite himself and found Park Sang-woo, his father's business partner, his own godfather, staring at him with widening eyes. "Ji-hoon-ah?" The disbelief was evident. "Is that you?" Ji-hoon's hands trembled as he held the clipboard. One word from this man, and everything would shatter. His carefully built life, his relationship with Sarah, his hard-won peace. All of it balanced on what Park Sang-woo would do next. "Samcheon," Ji-hoon acknowledged quietly, using the respectful term. "Please, not here." Park Sang-woo's shock transitioned to concern. "Your family has been looking everywhere. Your father thinks you're—" He stopped, looking around at the crowded venue. "We need to talk, privately." They found a quiet corner, away from the networking crowds. Park Sang-woo studied Ji-hoon's security uniform with a mixture of disbelief and something that might have been respect. "A security guard?" he finally said in Korean. "Kang Ji-hoon, heir to $8 billion, working as a security guard? It's more complicated than that. I'm sure it is." Park Sang-woo's expression softened. "Your father thinks you might be in trouble, or dead. Your mother cries every time your name is mentioned." The guilt hit Ji-hoon hard. He'd thought about his parents, of course, but in abstract terms, as obstacles to overcome rather than people who might actually be hurting. "I'm fine," Ji-hoon said quietly. "I'm happier than I've been in years." "Then why haven't you told them that?" "Because they wouldn't understand. To them, happiness means success, and success means doing what they planned for me." Park Sang-woo was quiet for a moment. "You're right. They wouldn't understand. But Ji-hoon, you can't just disappear. Your father needs to know you're alive and safe at minimum. If I tell him where I am, he'll try to drag me back." "Probably." Park Sang-woo smiled slightly. "But you're an adult. He can't actually make you do anything. The question is whether you're brave enough to stand up to him directly instead of just running away." The words stung because they were true. Ji-hoon had been brave enough to leave, but not brave enough to confront. "I need time," Ji-hoon said finally, "to figure out what to say, to prepare." Park Sang-woo studied him carefully. 2 weeks. Then I call your father and tell him you're alive. What you do with those 2 weeks is up to you, but I won't keep this secret longer than that. Your mother deserves to know her son is okay." 2 weeks, Ji-hoon agreed, knowing his borrowed time had just run out. When Sarah returned from visiting her family in California that weekend, Ji-hoon knew he couldn't delay any longer. He met her at the airport, and the moment she saw his face, concern flickered in her eyes. "What happened?" she asked. "I need to tell you everything," Ji-hoon said, "about who I really am." In his apartment that evening, with Chicago's lights spreading below them, Ji-hoon finally told her the truth. "My real name is Kang Ji-hoon. I'm the heir to Kang Industries, one of the largest conglomerates in South Korea, worth approximately $8 billion. My family owns everything from electronics to construction to pharmaceuticals. I walked away from it a year ago because I was suffocating under expectations. I've been hiding here, working minimum wage, pretending to be someone I'm not." He watched Sarah process this, saw the shock and confusion and hurt that he'd kept it from her so long. $8 billion, she repeated slowly, give or take. "And you've been working at Lincoln Elementary for minimum wage, yes." Ji-hoon sat beside her on the couch. "The reason I'm telling you now is because someone from my old life found me, my godfather. He's giving me 2 weeks to contact my family before he does it for me. Which means in 2 weeks, my father will know where I am, and he'll do everything in his power to bring me back." Sarah was quiet for a long moment, her analytical mind clearly racing. Then she asked, "Why school security, of all the places you could have hidden?" "Because it was the opposite of everything I'd known. No power games, no corporate politics, no one trying to use me or impress me. Just helping children feel safe, it felt honest. And me?" Sarah looked at him directly. "Was I part of the disguise? Never." The word came out fierce. "Everything with you has been real, Sarah. You're the first genuine thing in my life for longer than you'd believe. I'm in love with you. Not as David Park, not as Kang Ji-hoon, but as whoever I actually am underneath all of it." Sarah's eyes glistened. "The timing is terrible. I know. but I love you too. She reached for his hand. Even though you're secretly a billionaire, which is possibly the weirdest plot twist of my entire life. Despite the tension, Ji-hoon laughed. It was so perfectly Sarah, cutting through drama with dry humor. Over the next 2 weeks, they talked for hours. Sarah insisted on understanding his world before he made any decisions, so Ji-hoon had documents sent from Seoul, carefully, through channels that wouldn't alert his father. She read through financial statements, business reports, family history, trying to grasp what he was choosing or abandoning. Your family built this over 3 generations, Sarah said one evening, papers spread across her coffee table. That's legacy, whether you wanted it or not. But it's a legacy that requires me to be someone I'm not. Does it? Sarah challenged. Or does it require you to be someone you don't want to be? There's a difference. Being someone you're not means living a lie. Being someone you don't want to be means making sacrifices for something larger than yourself. The question hit hard. Had Ji-hoon left because he couldn't be himself in that world? Or because he didn't want to do the work that being himself in that world would require? I don't know, he admitted. Then maybe that's what you need to figure out. Sarah looked at him seriously. I'm not telling you what to do, Ji-hoon, but I think you need to face your father. Not as someone running away, but as someone who's made a choice and is willing to defend it. With 5 days left before Park Sang-woo's deadline, Ji-hoon made the call he'd been avoiding for a year. His father answered on the first ring. Who is this? It's me, it's Ji-hoon. The silence on the other end was deafening. Then, where are you? I'm safe. I'm in Chicago. I've been here for over a year. Chicago. His father's voice was cold. And what have you been doing in Chicago? Living. Working. Finding out who I am when no one's telling me who to be. Working as what? Ji-hoon took a breath. Security guard, at an elementary school. Another long silence. Then his father said, in a tone that could have frozen hell, we need to meet, face to face. I know. I'll fly there tomorrow. Send me an address. No. Ji-hoon kept his voice steady. I'll send you a meeting place. Neutral ground. His father made a sound that might have been respect, or might have been rage. Fine. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., don't make me wait. They met at an upscale hotel in downtown Chicago, the kind of place where Ji-hoon's father would feel comfortable, where power brokers made deals over expensive scotch. Kang Hyun-woo arrived with his usual entourage, though he dismissed them before entering the private meeting room Ji-hoon had reserved. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. Ji-hoon saw his father aging in ways he hadn't expected. More gray in his hair, deeper lines around his eyes. His father saw... what? A disappointment? A stranger? You look like a student, his father said finally in Korean, disapproval evident. I look comfortable. His father gestured to the opulent room around them. This could all be yours. Power, respect, luxury, everything I've built. Just come home. And marry who you choose? Work 80-hour weeks? Slowly lose myself in board meetings and business dinners? Become you? The last words came out harder than Ji-hoon intended, but his father barely flinched. If duty requires it, yes. Then I need you to understand something. Ji-hoon leaned forward. I'm not refusing because I'm lazy or cowardly or confused. I'm refusing because the price you're asking is too high. Too high? I'm offering you an empire. The price is me. The person I actually am. The life I want to live, the woman I love, that's the price, and I'm not paying it. His father stared at him. Your grandfather built this with his bare hands after the war. I've spent my entire life expanding it, protecting it, preparing it for you. And you'd throw that away for a school teacher. Yes. Because she sees me. Not the heir, not the money, not the potential business advantage. Just me. And that's worth everything you're offering and more. Then you are no longer my son. The words should have hurt more. Ji-hoon felt grief for the relationship that had never quite existed, but underneath was relief. The sense of a burden finally set down. "I'm sorry you feel that way," Ji-hoon said quietly. "I hope someday you'll understand that I'm not rejecting what you built. I'm just refusing to let it build me. You'll regret this. When the money runs out, when reality hits, you'll come crawling back. Maybe." Ji-hoon stood, the meeting clearly over. "But I don't think so. I've learned that I don't need your money to be happy. That's something you never taught me, but I figured it out anyway." He left the hotel and found Sarah waiting in the lobby. When she saw his face, she stood quickly. "How did it go?" "I'm officially cut off. No inheritance, no safety net, no family support." Ji-hoon took her hands. "Just me, a security guard's salary. Whatever I can build with my own hands, and you, if you'll have me under those circumstances." Sarah pulled him close, laughing against his chest. "I've been handling just you for months now. I think I can manage." They walked out into the Chicago afternoon, and Ji-hoon felt lighter than he had in years. The months that followed were marked by adjustment and growth. Ji-hoon threw himself into his work at Lincoln Elementary with renewed purpose, knowing now that this was his choice, not just his hiding place. He started taking night classes in child psychology, thinking about a future where he could do more than just monitor security cameras. Sarah was beside him through it all, not just supporting but challenging him to think bigger. "You have an MBA from Northwestern and experience running $1 billion company," she said one evening. "Maybe you can't use the Kang name, but you can use what you learned." "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting that hiding from your past and letting it define your future are two different things. You walked away from the family business. Fine. But that doesn't mean you walked away from business itself." The idea took root. Ji-hoon started consulting on the side, helping small businesses with strategy, using his expertise in ways that felt ethical and meaningful. Word spread, and within months he had a steady stream of clients. The money was modest compared to his inheritance, but it was his, earned through his own work. At school, his relationship with Sarah became public knowledge after Earl caught them kissing in the parking lot after hours. The older man just laughed and said, "About time. We all had a pool going on when you two would figure it out." By spring, Ji-hoon felt settled in a way he never had before. He was building a life that was genuinely his, not defined by his family's expectations or by his reaction against them, but by his own values and choices. It was on a warm May evening, exactly 1 year after his confrontation with his father, that Ji-hoon took Sarah to the Art Institute, the place where they'd spent part of their first holiday together. They stood in front of Surat's a Sunday afternoon, the pointillist masterpiece that Sarah had once explained to him in detail. "Do you remember what you told me about this painting?" Ji-hoon asked. "That up close it's just dots, but from a distance it becomes something beautiful?" "Yes. You said that sometimes you have to step back to see what you're actually creating." Ji-hoon turned to face her. "I've been stepping back, Sarah, looking at what we've built together, and it's beautiful." He took a small box from his pocket and opened it. Inside was a simple ring. Nothing ostentatious, just a single diamond on a platinum band. "I know I'm not the man you expected to fall in love with. I know my situation is complicated, that I come with baggage and a family that may never accept you. But I also know that you see me, really see me in a way no one else ever has. Sarah Chen, will you marry me?" Sarah's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. "Yes, yes, absolutely yes." As he slipped the ring onto her finger, other museum visitors applauded. It was perfect, public and private at once, surrounded by art and beauty, marking a future they would create together. 6 months later, Ji-hoon stood in Lincoln Elementary's gymnasium, watching 3-year-old Hope Kang Chen toddle across the floor. She had her mother's eyes and his stubbornness, and she was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. Sarah was across the room talking to parents at the school's fall festival. She'd been promoted to assistant principal, was working on her doctorate in education, and was 6 months pregnant with their second child. Their life was chaotic, exhausting, and absolutely perfect. Mr. Park, Mr. Park! Emma Rodriguez, now in 6th grade, ran up to him. Can you help us set up the ring toss? Of course, Emma. As he helped the students set up their festival game, Ji-hoon thought about the journey that had brought him here. He'd walked away from billions to find himself in a cramped security office. He'd lied about his name to discover his real identity. He'd given up everything his family had built to build something of his own, and he'd found more than he'd ever imagined possible. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I am so proud of you. Your grandfather would be too. Mom. Ji-hoon smiled. His mother had been sending occasional messages for months now, never long, never revealing how she'd gotten his number, but always warm. His father, true to his word, had cut him off completely. But his mother, in her quiet way, was letting him know she understood. Maybe, Ji-hoon thought, that was enough. But peace, he would learn, was never permanent. It had to be maintained, fought for, earned again each day. 3 years later, at 3 in the morning, Ji-hoon's phone rang with a call that would test everything he'd built. He fumbled for the phone, trying not to wake Sarah. The number had a Seoul country code. Hello? He answered in Korean, his voice thick with sleep. Ji-hoona. It was his father's voice, but different, strained, almost broken. It's your grandfather. He's had a heart attack. The doctors say... His father's voice cracked. He's asking for you. Ji-hoon sat up, suddenly fully awake. His grandfather, the one member of his family who'd always been different, who'd understood, who'd whispered warnings about losing your humanity to wealth. How bad is it? Bad. He's stable now, but... His father took a shaky breath. He wants to see you, to meet your family before he can't anymore. I'll be on the next flight. Within hours, Ji-hoon, Sarah, and 3-year-old Hope were on a plane to Seoul. Sarah held his hand during takeoff, Hope asleep in her lap. Are you okay? Sarah asked quietly. I don't know. I haven't seen any of them in over 3 years. And now, like this. Your grandfather matters to you. He was the only one who seemed to see me as a person, not just an heir. Then we're doing the right thing. At Incheon Airport, a driver was waiting. Not his father, but one of the family's longtime employees, Mr. Kim. The older man's eyes widened when he saw Ji-hoon. Young master, he said in Korean, then seemed to catch himself. I'm sorry, Mr. Kang. Ji-hoon is fine, Mr. Kim. Thank you for coming. The drive to Seoul National University Hospital was surreal. The city had changed in 3 years, but also felt frozen in time. Sarah held his hand. Hope pressed her face to the window, fascinated by the unfamiliar landscape. At the hospital, his father waited in the hallway outside the VIP wing. Kang Hyun-woo looked older than Ji-hoon remembered, smaller somehow, diminished by worry and exhaustion. You came, his father said in Korean, as if he hadn't quite believed it. Of course I came. They stood there, the accumulated weight of 3 years of silence pressing down on them. Then his father said quietly, He's been asking for you since he woke up. He wouldn't let them sedate him until you arrived. Can I see him? Yes. But... His father glanced at Sarah and Hope. Perhaps alone first? No, Ji-hoon said firmly. They're my family. If grandfather wants to meet them, he should. Something flickered in his father's expression, hurt, maybe, or acceptance. He nodded and led them down the hall. The room was filled with medical equipment, but in the bed, propped up by pillows, was his grandfather. Kang Sung-min looked frail in a way that broke Ji-hoon's heart. But when he saw them enter, his eyes lit up with unmistakable joy. Ah, he said in careful, accented English. So this is my great-granddaughter. Hope hid behind Sarah's legs, suddenly shy. But his grandfather just smiled. Come here, little one. Don't be afraid of a very old man. Sarah knelt down, whispering encouragement. Slowly, Hope approached the bed, her small face serious. You're very sick, Hope said with childlike directness. His grandfather laughed, the sound turning into a cough. Very sick, yes, and very old. But very happy to meet you finally. "This is my wife, Sarah," Ji-hoon said, his voice thick with emotion. "And our daughter, Hope." Beautiful name, Hope. His grandfather looked at Sarah with approval. "You must be the woman who saved my grandson." "I think we saved each other," Sarah said simply. "Good. That's how it should be." His grandfather's expression grew more serious. "Ji-hoon, come closer." Ji-hoon approached the bed, and his grandfather took his hand with surprising strength. "I was wrong," the old man said quietly in Korean, then switching to English so Sarah could understand. "Your father was wrong. We tried to make you into something you weren't meant to be. We forgot the most important lesson, that a man must choose his own path. Harabeoji, let me finish." Another cough. "I'm proud of you. Proud that you had the courage to walk away when it was right. Proud that you found love on your own terms. Proud of the father you've become." He paused, breathing heavily. "The company will survive without you being who we wanted. But that little girl needs you to be who you actually are." Tears streamed down Ji-hoon's face. "I'm sorry I disappointed you. I'm sorry I couldn't be what you needed." "Disappointed?" His grandfather's laugh was soft. "Boy, you're the only one in this family who had the courage to choose happiness over duty. That's not disappointing. That's brave." They stayed for hours as family members drifted in and out. Ji-hoon's mother arrived, embraced him silently, then spent an hour playing with Hope. His father maintained distance, watching but not engaging. That evening, his grandfather called Ji-hoon close one last time. "The company," he whispered in Korean. "I've changed my will. You're still heir, but on your terms. Part-time advisory role. Your father handles day-to-day operations. You just need to be present enough to maintain the family name. Attend major board meetings. Can you do that?" Ji-hoon looked at Sarah, who nodded slightly. "I can," he promised. "Good." His grandfather squeezed his hand. "Then I can rest easy. You've found something worth more than all our money. Hold on to it, Ji-hoon. Don't let anyone, including yourself, take it from you." Those were his grandfather's last coherent words. He slipped into sleep that night and never woke. The funeral was enormous. Business leaders from across Asia, politicians, extensive news coverage. Ji-hoon stood through it all, numb with grief, Sarah at his side, Hope clutching his hand. He watched as hundreds of people came to pay respects to Kong Sung-min, each sharing stories of his business acumen, his philanthropy, his vision. But what Ji-hoon would remember was simpler. The way his grandfather had looked at Hope with pure joy, the way he'd spoken English for Sarah's benefit despite his discomfort, the way he'd called Ji-hoon's choice brave rather than cowardly. After the formal ceremonies, during the private family gathering at the estate, Ji-hoon's father pulled him aside into the study, the same room where his grandfather had once warned him about losing his humanity. "We need to discuss your role," his father began, businesslike even in grief. "Grandfather changed his will. I know what he did. I was there when he had his lawyers draft it." His father's voice was sharp. "But the board won't accept a part-time heir. You need to come back full-time, Ji-hoon. This experiment has gone on long enough. You've had your freedom. You've proven your point. Now be realistic." Something in Ji-hoon snapped, not in anger, but in clarity. "No," he said quietly but firmly. "No, I'm going to honor grandfather's wishes. I'll maintain my position as heir. I'll attend major board meetings, participate in strategic decisions, be present enough to satisfy both the company and my conscience. But my life is in Chicago. My wife is there, my daughter, my son when he's born. My work, my real work, the work that matters to me, is there." "Your real work?" His father's voice dripped with disdain. "Babysitting school children?" "Yes. Helping to create an environment where children can learn and grow safely. Being someone they can trust. It's not glamorous. It doesn't make billions. But it matters. To them. To me. You're choosing security guard work over an $8 billion empire. I'm choosing meaning over money, purpose over prestige. I'm choosing to be present for my children instead of being an absent father like you were to me." The words hung in the air, brutal and honest. His father's face went white, then red. "I provided everything for you, except yourself." Ji-hoon kept his voice level. "I had nannies, tutors, drivers. I had the best schools, the finest clothes, access to anything money could buy. But I didn't have a father who came to my soccer games or asked about my day, or told me he was proud of me for anything other than good grades or business achievements." His father stood abruptly, walking to the window. When he spoke, his voice was different, smaller, almost vulnerable. "I didn't know how to be anything else. My father, your grandfather, he was warm, present. He made it look easy. But my own father was like me, cold, distant, focused on the empire above all else." He turned back to face Ji-hoon. "I thought that's what being a good father meant. Providing, building something to leave behind." "It's part of it," Ji-hoon said, gentler now. "But it's not all of it. I see that now. Watching you with hope." His father's voice cracked slightly. "The way she looks at you, the way you look at her. That's something I never had with you, and that's my failure, not yours." It was the closest thing to an apology Ji-hoon had ever heard from his father. "It doesn't have to stay that way," Ji-hoon said carefully. "If you want to know your grandchildren, to be part of their lives, you can. But not as the CEO of Kang Industries, just as their grandfather. I don't know if I know how to be just anything. Then learn. That's what I've been doing for the past 3 years." His father was quiet for a long moment. "The board meeting is in 3 weeks. For your grandfather's succession, you need to be there. I'll be there. And after that? After that, I go home. And once a month, I come back for board meetings. And twice a year, maybe you come to Chicago to visit your grandchildren. We figure it out as we go." His father nodded slowly. "Your grandfather was right about you. You are brave, foolish maybe, but brave. It wasn't much, but it was something." They returned to Chicago 2 weeks later. The transition was jarring, from the formal morning of Seoul to the cheerful chaos of Lincoln Elementary, from boardrooms to playgrounds, from Korean to English. But the real challenge came in the months that followed, as Ji-hoon tried to balance his 2 worlds. The Seoul trips were grueling. He'd leave Thursday evening after work, take a 14-hour flight, arrive Friday morning Seoul time, attend all-day board meetings, spend Saturday reviewing documents and meeting with key executives, fly back Sunday evening, and arrive Monday morning Chicago time, usually going straight to Lincoln Elementary despite the crushing jet lag. Sarah saw the toll it was taking, the dark circles under his eyes that concealer couldn't quite hide. The way he'd sometimes space out mid-conversation, his mind clearly somewhere over the Pacific, the tension in his shoulders that no amount of massage could ease. And then there was hope. Every Thursday evening, as Ji-hoon packed his small carry-on, Hope would follow him around the apartment, her small face creased with worry. "Daddy going to Korea again?" she'd ask, even though she knew the answer. "Yes, baby. But I'll be back Monday morning, always. Don't want you to go." Her small hands would grip his shirt. "Stay with me and Mommy." Each time Ji-hoon felt his heart shatter a little, he'd kneel down, cup her face gently, try to make her understand. "I have to go, Hope. There are people in Korea who need Daddy to help them with important business, but you know what? What? No matter how far away I am, I'm always thinking about you, and I always, always come back. Promise?" "Promise." But the promise felt hollow when he'd miss bedtime stories for 3 nights straight, when he'd have to watch Hope's preschool play via video chat because a board meeting ran long, when he'd return home to find that she'd drawn him dozens of pictures that she'd saved up all weekend to show him. Sarah, for her part, was managing. But it was a specific kind of managing, the kind that involved holding everything together through sheer force of will, while quietly resenting the situation. She never complained directly, but Ji-hoon saw it in small moments, the exhaustion in her eyes when he called from Seoul at what was morning for him, but 2 a.m. for her. The way she'd sigh when he texted that his flight was delayed again, The forced cheerfulness when she'd tell Hope, "Daddy's working hard for our family." One Monday evening, after Ji-hoon had gone straight from the airport to school, and then come home to find both Sarah and Hope already asleep, he sat in their dark living room and confronted an uncomfortable truth. He was failing at the balance he'd promised he could maintain. The next morning, over coffee, he tried to address it. "I know this is hard," he started. Sarah looked up from her tablet where she was reviewing student reports. "It is what it is, Ji-hoon." "That's not an answer." "What do you want me to say?" She set down the tablet. "That I'm tired of essentially single parenting 4 days a month. That Hope asks me every Thursday night why you have to leave. That I canceled our anniversary dinner last month because your flight was delayed and you didn't get home until midnight. I'm sorry. I know you're sorry. And I know this situation isn't entirely in your control, but it's still hard, Ji-hoon. It's really hard." He reached for her hand. "Tell me how to make it better." "I don't know if you can. Not right now. This is the deal, right? This is the compromise you made with your father. Be present enough for the business, but live your real life here." Sarah's voice softened. "I'm not asking you to choose differently. I'm just asking you to acknowledge how difficult this is for all of us." "I do. I see it, Sarah, and it kills me." "I know it does." She squeezed his hand. "We'll figure it out. We always do. But maybe we need to be more strategic. Maybe you need to talk to the board about adjusting the schedule. Or maybe we need to get more help here at home. Or maybe my mother comes to stay during the longer trips," Ji-hoon suggested. Sarah blinked. "Your mother, would she do that?" "I can ask. She's been sending messages. I think she wants to be part of our lives even if my father is still holding back." And so, tentatively, they built new bridges. Ji-hoon's mother began making trips to Chicago, staying for a week at a time when Ji-hoon had to be in Seoul. At first, it was awkward. Her English was limited, Sarah's Korean even more so, and there was the weight of years of separation. But Hope was the bridge. She loved her halmoni immediately, delighting in learning Korean words and eating the traditional dishes her grandmother prepared. And watching his mother with his daughter, seeing the gentleness and love that she'd been unable to show openly when Ji-hoon was growing up, he felt something heal inside him. The board, seeing Ji-hoon's commitment despite the challenges, began to adjust as well. They started bunching meetings together more strategically, allowing Ji-hoon to come once a month instead of twice, but for longer periods. They set up better video conferencing for non-essential meetings. Slowly, painfully, they found a rhythm, and gradually, over months, the pattern became less chaotic. Hope grew accustomed to Korea weeks and started marking them on her calendar, counting down to Daddy's return. Sarah's mother also started staying more regularly, giving Sarah backup and adult company. Ji-hoon learned to manage his energy better, to sleep on planes, to transition between worlds more smoothly. One evening, about 18 months after his grandfather's death, Ji-hoon was giving Hope a bath while Sarah cooked dinner. Their son Daniel was sleeping in his crib nearby, 6 months old and perfect. "Daddy?" Hope asked, playing with her bath toys. "Yes, baby. When I grow up, can I work in Korea sometimes too?" Ji-hoon paused, surprised by the question. "Do you want to?" "Maybe. I like when Halmoni tells me stories about Korea. And you always say it's important." "It is important." "But you know what's more important?" "What?" "Figuring out what makes you happy. And then finding a way to do that while also taking care of the people you love." Hope thought about this, then nodded seriously. "Like you do. Like I try to do." That summer, they all went to Seoul together for 2 weeks. A real vacation, not just a business trip. Ji-hoon showed Sarah and the kids the city he'd grown up in, the places he'd loved before the weight of expectations made everything complicated. His father joined them for a few dinners. The conversations were still awkward, still formal, but there was an effort there that hadn't existed before. And when Daniel spit up on his father's expensive suit jacket, and the older man just laughed and asked for a towel, Ji-hoon felt something shift, a recognition that maybe his father could learn to be different too. On their last night in Seoul, Ji-hoon stood on the balcony of their hotel room, looking out at the city lights. Sarah joined him, sliding her arm around his waist. "What are you thinking?" she asked. "That I'm tired. That I miss Chicago. That I can't wait to get home to our apartment in Lincoln Elementary and Martinez's coffee shop." He pulled her closer. "But also that I'm glad we came. That maybe Seoul doesn't have to be the enemy anymore. It can just be part of the story." "It was always part of the story, Ji-hoon. You can't erase where you come from. You can only decide what you do with it." They flew home 2 days later, and Ji-hoon felt the familiar relief of landing at O'Hare, of driving through Chicago streets, of walking into their apartment with its clutter and noise and life. Hope ran immediately to her room to show her toys that she'd missed them. Daniel fell asleep in his car seat. Sarah started unpacking while Ji-hoon stood in their living room, taking in the beautiful, ordinary chaos of his life. This was home, not Seoul, not the estate, not the corporate offices. Here. This small apartment with its second-hand furniture and crayon drawings on the walls and coffee mugs in the sink. His phone buzzed. An email from Earl. "Welcome back. Don't forget we've got the new security protocols training Monday morning. And Sarah's already scheduled 3 parent meetings for you this week. Life at Lincoln waits for no one." Ji-hoon smiled. Perfect. The following Monday, Ji-hoon arrived at Lincoln Elementary to find an envelope on his desk. Inside was a letter from the school district. "Dear Mr. Kang, we are writing to officially recognize your 3 years of dedicated service to Lincoln Elementary School. Your commitment to our students, despite significant demands on your time, has not gone unnoticed. We would like to offer you a permanent position as head of security, with appropriate compensation and benefits. We understand you have other professional obligations, but we hope you will continue to be part of our community for years to come. Please see attached the letters we've received from students, parents, and staff regarding your impact on our school." Attached were dozens of letters. "Mr. Park makes me feel safe every day. Emma R. He helped me when I was scared of coming to school. Marcus T. Our children adore him. John multiple parents. He's more than a security guard. He's part of our family here." Principal Morrison Ji-hoon felt his throat tighten as he read each one. This was what he'd been looking for when he left Seoul. Not escape, but purpose. Not wealth, but worth. "So?" Earl appeared in the doorway. "You staying?" Ji-hoon looked around his small office at the security monitors showing children arriving for the day, at the clipboard with the day's schedule, at the Lincoln Elementary logo on his uniform shirt. "Yeah," he said, smiling. "I'm staying." That evening, Ji-hoon and Sarah sat on their apartment balcony after the kids were asleep. The Chicago skyline glittered before them, the city alive with possibility. "Your grandfather would be proud," Sarah said quietly. "You think so? I know so. You're living proof that you can honor your family and still be true to yourself. That wealth doesn't have to define you, but doesn't have to destroy you either. You found the third option." Ji-hoon pulled her closer. "I couldn't have done it without you. You saw me when I was pretending to be someone else. You loved me anyway. You made me believe I could be both people, the heir and the security guard, the businessman and the father, the Korean and the American. You were always both, Ji-hoon. I just helped you see it." They sat in comfortable silence as the city hummed around them. "So what now?" Sarah asked. "You've got your grandfather's blessing, your father's grudging acceptance, a permanent job at the school, a family. What's next?" Ji-hoon thought about it, about the monthly board meetings in Seoul and the daily routines at Lincoln Elementary, about teaching Hope and Daniel to be proud of both their heritages, about the children who trusted him to keep them safe, about the woman beside him who'd changed everything. Now, he smiled, now we just live. No more running, no more hiding, just living the life we chose. And as the Chicago night settled around them, Ji-hoon felt something he'd been searching for since he first put on that ill-fitting security guard uniform. Peace. Not the absence of challenge or difficulty, but the peace of knowing he was exactly where he was meant to be, with exactly who he was meant to be with, living exactly the life he'd chosen for himself. His grandfather had been right. That was worth more than any empire. What do you think? Did Ji-hoon make the right choice in balancing both worlds? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective on finding balance between duty and happiness. Rate this story from 0 to 10, and let us know what score you'd give it. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more inspiring narratives like this one. And make sure to check out more emotional stories by clicking on the end screen. Thank you for being part of this journey with us.